比台湾和韩国要难。内地现在应该没有吧？对，这个还是有一点点那个，就是当我们还是事实依归，而且就是还是提建设性的意见，就是这个东西可以这样做会好一点点。但是总体来说，因为你再往下说，像我昨天也会讲到，就是那种抗议，就是战争之后的那种追捕啊，就是你再往下说下去，你就属于那种政治上的东西了，对不对？对啊，对啊，那你讲，而且你肯定是要会讲这个东西，因为你要跟别人解释你这个东西的意义的时候，你为什么要研究这个东西？因为你这东西还是就是涉及到我们个人的权益嘛，你归根结底，所以还是会有这个。所以所以你们感觉现在就是近2年是怎么样就做？现在有进展吗？新的政府？对对，互联网加，嗯嗯，嗯，哦，微信啊什么的，嗯有没有在做一些制度性的一些，就是比如说可能像以前就是像政府信息公共条例是2010年，对，就是像上一届政府这样子，就他可能真的会尝试去做一些制度。那现在的话，他是想继续朝这个方向走呢？不一定啊，就各方面，就包括互联网的这种域名的这种国际合作啊，对，你的感觉，就还是会继续朝。对，就大家还在想去完善它。其实我们从境外的角度看，真的是这2年就是你要纯粹从看报道，所以好多东西好像是越来越不太乐观这样子。但就不知道具体里面行政运营上面是还是就是继续在跑。就还处在关起门来讨论的阶段。你在这个做多久？哦，其实也
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. And our session is almost starting, but we are still waiting for the last panelist right now. And in Chinese saying, the good thing is always coming late. So please be patient for a while. Thank you. So, well, our panelist is all here right now, just as saying the good thing is always coming late. Yes. And welcome to the multi-stakeholder stage. And shall we dance? Okay. Please see the screen. That's the title of our workshop. It's a topic about multi-stakeholder, and I don't know how many participants here uh, attended. If how many if some participants here attended last year at AprIGF, because last year we held a similar topic on the IG topics, and in the last year we talk about the development of IG principles from the geographic diversity. Yeah. And this year, we would like to promote the dialogue. And the dialogue is never, the dialogue never stopped at any time. So this time, we would like to promote the further discussion on this regional perspective. Yeah. So let's start. At first, I would like to introduce the brief structure of this session. As the first one, every panelist will introduce themselves to the audience, and at the second session, I would like to ask the every expert to share some understanding of multi-stakeholder from their respective perspective. Yeah. And in the last session, we will boost some dynamic discussion. And in the end, the audience will be encouraged to have some interaction of this topic. Okay? Who is the first one? Who is the first one? I think from my left hand.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leonid Todorov. I'm from Russia. I'm general manager of Asia Pacific Top Level Association, but right now probably I will represent more like Russian perspective on the issue. Thank you.
Test. Hi, everyone. My name is Jarong. I'm from Singapore. I lead the Asia Pacific Hub for ICANN, covering the Asia Pacific region. I am considered quite new in internet governance, I think, because I joined ICANN in 2013. Then I participated in my first AprIGF, and that was in Seoul. So I've been attending the AprIGFs since then, but compared to some people in this room, I'm considered a newbie. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Patrick Ho. I come from Hong Kong. I'm the Deputy Chairman and Secretary General of China Energy Fund Committee, which is an NGO, a think tank. Although it's called energy, but energy we take as its broadest sense of the word. There's anything that drives civilization to progress is energy. Anything that sustains human development is energy. So for a matter, we work very closely with the United Nations, especially the ECOSOC, Economic and Social Councils of the United Nations. And for that matter, I've been appointed by the Secretary General as a new member of the MAC Committee of the UN this year. And because we have been working very closely with various NGOs to achieve the sustainable development goals, and these are some of the objectives that we have in mind.
Good afternoon. I'm Rajneesh Singh, or Raj, as most people call me. I am of no fixed abode. It's largely in airplanes, and I look after the Internet Society's work in the Asia Pacific region.
Hello, Edmund Chung from Data Asia. Started participating in internet governance, I guess, since 1999, mainly at ICANN. So my views are very biased from an ICANN influence, and from Hong Kong as well. So very interesting development in terms of governance and constitutional development there in Hong Kong as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ning from China mainland, and I work for CINIC. CINIC is the CCTLD registry of .cn. And actually, I'm an IT engineer, so I often attend the IETF meetings since 2009. So I think I can make some comments from the technical community. Thank you.
Well, welcome our distinguished panelists again. So applaud. Yeah, thank you. And I feel very lucky because I'm the only lady in the panelist. Yeah, and I feel very happy to have this discussion here. And I know this year AprIGF invited so many youth participants here. So maybe multi-stakeholder is quite new things to the youth audience. In the first round of the introduction, so I hope my panelists to introduce the multi-stakeholder from your side as concise and as simple as possible, to let them know what multi-stakeholder is. And during the past year, we have thinking about the IG in the local content and local culture. And I have some inspiration during this year to share with you. The first one is the debate. We know multi-stakeholder is the mainstream of IG model, but there are still some different voices and different interpretation of the multi-stakeholder. And the most debates focuses on the terminology and the terminology and the translation, because it's a word which can't be translated exactly in different language. But anyway, to my opinion, multi-stakeholder is a model. It's a tool to boost the most effective cooperation. So shall we put our attention to this model and put our attention to how to make this model more effective. And the second inspiration is actually in the last year's discussion, we talk about the content and the actors of IG ecosystem. We have a lot of contents of IG, such as cybersecurity and internet economy and internet the impacts of the internet on the society and culture, and so on. So maybe in the different fields, we can use the multi-stakeholder as by different ways, and the mechanism is different. On the other side, the different region and different country, when they use the multi-stakeholder to boost the IG, IG process, they will use a different way. So that's my thoughts on the IG principles and multi-stakeholder. So shall we give the floor to our panelists one by one?
Yes, hello again. As I said, I'm from Russia, the country which fiercely denies on the official level multi-stakeholder model, multi-stakeholder driven model and multi-stakeholderism, and consistently advocates that the internet governance issues should be assigned to an intergovernmental organization associated with the United Nations, such as, for example, the International Telecommunications Union, or ITU. But back a little bit, I will go backwards and remind especially the young audience that the term multi-stakeholderism or multi-stakeholder driven approach was crafted back in the year 2005 when the global community had, I mean, mostly intergovernmental community, had a meeting in Tunis, and then they decided that there should be some working definition for that phenomenon, how the internet is governed. And Markus Kummer, who is not in the room, but some of you may have noticed him, Markus Kummer led that group. He was a Swiss diplomat at that time, so some around 40 people, smartest and wisest people, were crafting that definition very thoroughly so that it could be accepted by all the nations. And at the end of the day, they came with a very general definition, which meant basically that everybody, every constituency, every group, every stakeholder should play a certain role. Like for governments, it's just to define the framework, the legal and regulatory framework. For businesses, develop the best applications produced by technical community. For users, to try those applications and to see which ones would suit their interest the best. And for academics, to describe this process and to provide a foresight as to where these where this process would be developed further on. But interestingly, that was labeled the working definition. We should be reminded at all times that it was just a working definition for that time, for that particular gathering, and for several years probably ahead, as they thought at that time. Interestingly, multi-stakeholderism is not Markus Kummer's and his friends' invention. Multi-stakeholderism is a very, very old thing, and you might be interested to know that it dates back to medieval ages, when Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Denmark, although they were called in a different way, as well as some so-called free cities in Europe, practiced multi-stakeholderism. Clear multi-stakeholderism. Just to give you an idea, in Scandinavia there was a very famous gathering which was called Gatarna, and that meant that all the people of a certain location, or even on the national level, could get together to discuss whatever issues, and without any restrictions, and the decision was made by rough consensus. So people just discussed those urgent issues. In free cities, people were united in guilds, like I'm a locksmith and I belong to a certain guild. He is a shoemaker, he is from a different guild. But we had, what we had in common was that we would vote for a representative of our guild to sit on a city council and to advocate our own interests, which should be consistent with interests of other guilds. So that was a perfect multi-stakeholderism. Now, the discussion on multi-stakeholderism ignited in the year 2012 when the then ICANN's president, Fadi Shehadi, for me, it was quite unexpectedly then that twist when ICANN started talking about only multi-stakeholderism at public meetings. So that was a little bit, came as a surprise. And then at that time, there was that clear divide between certain nations, which manifested itself in a huge gathering under the UN umbrella, when some nations advocated multi-stakeholderism, some others were for intergovernmental-led effort in internet governance. And it ended up in a certain divide between these two groups of nations. It would be fair to say that the group which advocated intergovernmental-led internet governance was bigger than multi-stakeholder, than those who advocated multi-stakeholderism. It was interesting. So then I just tried to realize what was wrong, why that divide was there. Was it East versus West? I mean, Western countries, democracies, and so forth. 1 minute. Okay, so, or was it something else, like, for example, democracies versus authoritarian regimes? And then I came to a conclusion, that is my conclusion to share with you. I believe that it's mature states which can afford, oh, here's Markus Kummer. That's the man behind this session. So, I think that this is mature states who can afford multi-stakeholderism, and newly formed states, young states, who still cannot believe in their forces so much and cannot trust all the stakeholders, and that is why they try to consolidate the power and try to lead this internet governance process. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to ask every panelist to have your short introduction within 5 or 6 minutes. And yes, and I would like to make short comments on the Leo's points. I heard of one interesting word here, Hansa, or is Hans? Hansa, yeah, Hansa. It's alliance in the ancient years of the Scandinavia, Scandinavia, yes, yeah, Europe. I think some people know that, and in Chinese it's 汉萨同盟，应该有人知道，对吧？ And Leo described this is the new oranges of multi-stakeholder. I think it's a very interesting thought, and we can think about if it's makes sense. Okay, so I will give the floor to Jiarong.
Thank you, Leonid. If we have time later, can you also share about multi-stakeholder in Russian? When you have time later, yeah. Once I heard his story, I think a couple of years back, Leonid talked about the language issue regarding the definition of multi-stakeholder. And in Russian is very interesting. So we'll keep some time for Leonid for that. For me, my understanding of multi-stakeholder and how I learned it is not too far away. It's actually around the time of when the internet was being conceived. A number of graduate students, they realized that in the 60s, they realized that their computers can talk to each other if you code them in a certain way. You code them in a way that they speak the same language, that the data transferred, the size is the same, and you have certain agreements on the standards of, okay, when I transfer my information to your computer, what port number should this be? And these graduate students, they started writing this code. And the output of that very first code was called RFC1, Request for Comments 1. So those who are a little bit familiar with RFCs, if you've gone to an IETF meeting, the Internet Engineering Task Force meeting, till to this day, RFCs are still being used, and it's in the thousands. It's evolving and changing as the technology grows. So this RFC process that started way back, and one of the amongst a couple of founders, one of them is Steve Crocker, who is the ICANN chair of our board. In a way, they agreed to use a model that is what we know as the multi-stakeholder model today. It is basically a model where there is a problem, we want to fix it. Who are the people who are interested in this topic, on this issue? Let's come together, work out, do a request for comments, work out a proposal that we can have a common standard together on. And that is also the same model which we function today in the multi-stakeholder community. So I'm simplifying things a lot, but I think that would help with a simple understanding of what multi-stakeholder model is. And it's really, when you talk about multi-stakeholder approach and internet governance, for the technical community, the multi-stakeholder approach is really about coming together to solve problems, to create a standard that everyone can use. So for the benefit of everybody. And when you talk about internet governance, it's really about making these rules and standards that you can share across the world, rather than governance in the context of, especially for Asians, governance in the context of government, or governance in the context of enforcement or to regulate something. It is not based on that kind of understanding, especially for the multi-stakeholder model. So there is a little bit of confusion, because these two buzzwords, internet governance, when you misinterpret it to be governance and governments, and then the multi-stakeholder model, which is really rules and standards and coming together to solve problems, these two actually become paradoxical to each other. But I think it's really through understanding and dialogue that we can come to a common understanding and think about how we can take this forward. Last point I'll just say on multi-stakeholder model is that because it is a model where different people come together to solve problems, it allows you to move with the technology very quickly. Now, if we were to have to sign a treaty every time we want to change a standard or a new technology, it will take very long for things to happen. But when you're just thinking of, okay, what should be the port number for email, what's the port number for browser, it's just a group of people who can decide on it. Then let's just move forward with it without having to go through a very long treaty signing process of agreeing on that number. So that's just throwing the snippet there as a food for thought. Thank you.
My approach to the whole problem is I think we should really separate it into different categories and levels of thinking. And just to clarify some points, the whole matters about how to run the internet. The internet was really a very high-tech type of telecommunication platform. It was first, I wouldn't say designed or manufactured, but it was under the research and development of the United States Defense Department. It was first used as a military communication in the field with a code name and all that. And it was, the United States Defense Department put a lot of money and resources in developing these type of communications. But towards the end of the century, last century, it decided that it should really civilize its use and really convert that military propriety into civilian use. So around the end of the century, something like 1990, originally the whole gamut of administering this, overseeing how to transfer its use from the government use to civilian use was overseen by the United States Department of Commerce. They have something called National Telecommunications Administration Agency, and it was so under the public consultation. It then decided how to devolve this administrative power into the hands of the civilians, and it is in this whole process that generated the whole debate about internet governance. The internet governance is different from multi-stakeholders. Okay, internet governance comes first, and it's actually in the Tunis meeting in 2005 that the concept of international governance of the internet operations is really what's needed. But it was towards and 2012 in the meeting in Dubai, in the United Nations sponsored National Telecommunication meeting, that there was a debate about how we should go about forming an international body to oversee this governance. And there was this, there was alluded to about the colleagues before, there was debate about whether it should be intergovernmental or whether it should be multi-stakeholder. Then multi-stakeholderism was really a concept that was spawned at the 2012. And in the matter of a few years, it really caught fire and generated a lot of debates. But I don't think we should let the tail wag the dog. We have been so much involved in debating how to do this multi-stakeholderism, and who should be in it, and all these minute details of power sharing, that we lose sight of internet governance, that we lose sight of how we use the internet to really improve people's life. I think we should really go back to square one, go back to simplicity in discussing how we should use the internet to achieve the sustainable development goals of the next 15 years. Number one of which is to eradicate poverty, especially in developing countries. When we look back into the Tunis Agreement, the United Nations has bid that the internet community should really look at how to empower, to engage, to develop competence and develop capacity buildings in developing countries to use ICTs to eradicate poverty. I think we should not lose sight on that, and I think you should use multi-stakeholderism, which is a toolbox, which is not a solution. It's a toolbox, meaning the solution is still ahead of us. The way is still, the road is still a way to go. We should develop along the way to develop this final version of how we should do internet governance, which should be different from location to location, taking into consideration the local climate, the local political situation, the local social norm, and local traditional culture. And that's why diversity is so important, and that's why we're having this regional meeting of the IGF. I think we should go from bottom up, and we should go from regional IGF, national IGF, into the international IGF, and that's how good governance come to be. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm not going to give a historical overview like Leonid did, so that I can't challenge him on that. He's way too ahead. I would just want to pick up on a few things that my good friend Jorong said. And really, I think that's at the crux of the issue, particularly I think if we look at this region, but as well as other regions as well, is the issue of what multi-stakeholder means in the local language. How do you translate that? But at the same time, the word internet governance, I think, suffers from the same problem, because the word governance itself, again, if you translate it into a lot of our languages, probably all of them, I don't know, the fact is it means something, you're ruling something, you are in control of something, you're regulating something. So, however, typically we don't see internet governance as regulation. We see how we collectively manage this thing we have called the internet. But again, when you translate, or when you try and explain to people for whom English is not their first language, or they don't have a good command of it, it becomes quite difficult. And I think nearly all of us face that problem every now and then. In terms of how I see multi-stakeholder, over the last, I don't know what it's been, 15 years or whatever it's been, that I have been in this space, not necessarily in the internet world, but in other things that I was doing. What I've seen is an evolution in how things are done today. If I were to define what multi-stakeholder means to me, for me it is everyone has an opportunity to participate in something for the collective good of all of us. So if you have a stake in that thing, whatever the thing may be, multi-stakeholder is equated with the internet world quite a bit, but these days a lot of other sectors are also using it. My family background is agriculture, and I can see some multi-stakeholder things happening in that sector as well, which is quite interesting for me, because I have the lens of the internet world, and then I see what's happening on that side, and it's quite interesting how various different stakeholders in that particular line of work are getting together to try and reach a collective decision or collective consensus on an issue. So really it's the opportunity to participate, and I think what we need to do is not to create barriers to this participation, and the barriers are many. Language is obviously one, culture is another. I think Patrick mentioned social and cultural norms that we may have as historical things. And I think the trick is to try and find a balance between all of that and ensure that the collective good is done. And that collective good really is for the whole world, not for just us, because that's what the internet is. Thanks.
So building on actually what Raj just mentioned, I mean, language and culture. I think that goes back to your first point about governance and how people interpret that. I find it very interesting because, yes, there's probably some kind of regulation, but if you have the ownership, you feel that it's a collective decision making. So there is, in some cultures, there's no difference. In some cultures, there is a significant difference. And pointing back to what Patrick earlier mentioned, I think the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, is definitely one area. I think each of us alluded to some of the, how the internet is now expanding the entire society and how that really impacts our daily lives, really. And one interesting thing about, though, the SDGs, I find, after reading through the very, very long document, is before the SDG, we talk about sustainable development in three aspects: people, prosperity, and planet. What the SDG specifically added is peace and partnership. And one of the things that I think the world now understands is that without strong institutions, without strong democracy, equitable society, all these kind of things, the sustainable development work around the globe, it cannot work. And I think internet governance has a lot to contribute in that. We're working on a kind of global resource, and we're experimenting with a global collaboration in a different way than we had in previous decades or centuries. So coming back to some of the things that in my experience, as in my introduction I mentioned, very much biased by my experience from ICANN participation. And actually earlier today, there's a session that I helped put together. Multi-stakeholder approach is really never meant to be monolithic. I think that I'm stealing that from Adam, or he was quoting somebody else. One size doesn't fit all. And another very interesting thing is that we tend to think about different stakeholders as having equal powers. That's also not true. The stakeholders won't have equal powers. It's a differing powers based on the actual issue that's being discussed. At ICANN or at IETF, at IGF, the powers, the right balance of power may not be exactly equal, but how do we manage those, the balance of power is one of the dynamics or one of the things about multi-stakeholder approach, and keeping that global kind of public interest as a goal. And looking at the kind of power bars of the different stakeholder groups, we probably should think about a current view, who has a bigger influence and power, and a dynamic view, how it should change over time, because that's another thing about the evolving internet governance and multi-stakeholder landscape is pretty clear that stakeholder group boundaries change. New stakeholders come into play. New people get online every day. And those are some of the challenges, I think, not only ICANN, but when we talk about multi-stakeholder approach. And I think we touched a little bit on rough consensus. I think rough consensus is another big challenge, and in terms of how we define it. As I mentioned, while we don't have a equal power for every stakeholder, and perhaps necessarily so, we also don't have a good definition of rough consensus. It's definitely not majority rule, because a rough consensus can actually be called by a minority and still be a rough consensus and still make sense and still be the right decision. And those are some of the challenges that really challenges our views of what we call democratic or what we call good governance in some sense, because we're talking about situations where it is the right thing to do to not take the quote-unquote majority position. And why is that? One of the biggest reasons, I think, is because we don't have everyone participating, first of all, and it's impossible to do so. And not everyone is interested in doing so. And that gives us a different type of challenge when we talk about representation. Representation, how stakeholder groups are being represented in councils, in committees, in boards, and that brings us to an interesting situation. And my other background coming from Hong Kong, which informs my view of this whole multi-stakeholder concept. Hong Kong's legislature has a very strange makeup, where part of the elected members of legislation are what is called functional constituencies. It's almost like a multi-stakeholder approach, except I shouldn't say that, but some people would call it a dysfunctional constituencies. So one of the things is that, multi-stakeholder approach is was taking the views from the different stakeholders, different interests, but how you then integrate it and how the system then takes those input and those views and be representative of those views rather than the number of people it represents is something that I think the future of multi-stakeholder approach we need to keep refining. And when we talk about the issues that we want to regulate or govern, I think one of the key questions we need to think about is, which is, I think, Bertrand likes to say, governance of the internet or governance on the internet. And it goes back to the SDGs and some of the things. When we talk about ICANN and critical internet resources, we're actually governing how the internet works, off the internet. That multi-stakeholder makeup would be very different than when we talk about governance on the internet, issues like cyberbullying, copyright and stuff. Sorry, and that's really the end. And that's basically what I want to say is that the important parts of it is to try to look at it as a changing dynamic and how we continue to improve it. Thank you.
Yeah. We can share the remaining thoughts to the next session. Yeah. I give the floor to Dr. Kong.
Excuse me. Hello. I try to make my comments very short. Just as I mentioned, I come from the technical community, so I'm more familiar with the IETF working process. But to be honest, the multi-stakeholder, this term is a little new for me. But when I totally understand the definition and the spirit of the multi-stakeholder, I think the idea is very familiar for me, because just as Jiarong mentioned, that the working process of the IETF is really multi-stakeholder and not even multi. Everyone, if you can have an email address, you can join any working group you are interested, and you can provide your comments by the email, and the working group can really accept your comments if your comments really make sense. So that means everyone can have the chance to change the standardization of the internet protocol. So it's really good. But to the terms of the multi-stakeholder, especially for the China mainland people, I think this term is it's hard to understand. We try to translate it very correctly. We translate it normally as 多利益相关方 or 多利益攸关方. So 利益 is a Chinese word. Maybe the meaning is interest and a little related with the commercial things. So I think the translation terms is not very neutral for these words. And I did talk with Edmund. Edmund told me that in Hong Kong area, they do have the very correct Chinese Guangdongese words for the stakeholder. So I think the challenge for us is not to try to how to translate the terms, is how to explanation of these ideas, how to tell people that internet is for everybody, just the mission of the ISOC. And the key point for me that how to like the idea being told to everyone and let everyone know that internet can be open to everyone. Everyone can have the chance to contribute to the internet. Thanks.
Okay, many thanks to our panelists at the first session. I think they give us panorama of the multi-stakeholder from many faces, from the different faces. And I also think audience on site and remotely, they will definitely have some comments or some thoughts on the presentation, the brief presentation. So I would like to open the first round interaction here. You can ask any questions to our panelists right now. You can stand here or on your seat. It's both okay. So do you have any questions?
While you're just thinking of these questions, let me share with you some observation, because first of all, responding to what Jiarong said, in the Russian language, of course, we don't have that word stakeholder, so we translate it in like 7 words, I believe. So it's the process which involves all interested parties in their respective capacities, something like that. Anyway, what I'm trying to say right now, as internet users, just to explain some different logic, for example, Russian government logic, government's logic. As internet users, do you care much of how the internet is governed, or do you care more of being able to surf the internet? I mean, I'm just ask this question to the audience, and it's not just accidental, because then we should understand that most internet users do not give a thought how the internet is governed. Your major concern is, I want to be online at all times, right? So that's one thing. The other thing, just step momentarily in some government, I would put it like this, in some government shoes. The government is to govern. The government believes that we, as the government, know better what our people need and what we should do for them. Now, I want to see what is going on, let's call it, in my national segment of the internet. Who is governing that? Where is, I mean, our government people, can they do that? No? Where are those? Some engineers from some murky establishment called IETF? How shall I deal with them? I don't know them. What are they doing there? Who is governing them? Who is overseeing them? What if they do some wrong things with my national segment of the internet? By the way, does my national segment lies within my within the borders of my country? No. Where are the servers? In the United States? Oh, then I know, of course. It's American plot against my country. Of course, they want to shut down my internet, which I would never allow them to do. So I'd better just put everything within my borders, and I will do my own internet. Whether I would call it halal internet for a Muslim country, or I will call it Russian internet, I will just close the borders and make sure that nobody could do that. Think of this.
Yeah. Any feedback should be in the 2 minutes, all right? Okay. Are there any feedback to the comments from Leonie? Which, yeah, please.
Hello, Rita. I'm also from Hong Kong, and Edmund's remark made me think about how the dysfunctional constituencies. And I was wondering, there has been a long discussion in the IGF about the limitations of multi-stakeholder models. And I think there have also been a lot of proposals for alternatives. And one of the main criticism is really that we all have multiple stakes, and we are everything at the same time. Most of us are technical experts, citizens, but also professionals. And so where do we actually belong, and how do we reflect this diversity, and how can we also switch between our stakes, that you have a stake in this issue, but another stake in this, and you can much more easily also have diverse views on complex issues. And I think that is maybe the limitations of the stakeholder model, that you always need to reflect one particular view or interest group. So what is the panel's thinking of alternatives or more advanced models of governance? Thanks.
And so the question is to all of the panelists. Okay.
I guess just responding, Kuo will probably add to me. Just quickly respond. In my session actually earlier, I'm glad that we had a little bit of that discussion. If you look at ICANN itself, then for example, you see actually the stakeholder grouping, the boundaries start blurring, especially with new GTLDs. Everyone is a GTLD. Governments are GTLDs, registrars are GTLDs, and in that situation, you can actually see ICANN starting to evolve towards a situation where more and more issues are discussed across stakeholders, across the cross community working groups are being formed, and they become the new norm. So the way what happened to be more siloed discussions among stakeholders and then build up is slowly becoming a bigger working group with all stakeholders. And then what happens is that and then representation changes. The councils and committees and board becomes less of a policy discussion forum rather than a more administrative and checkbox situation where the representation no longer represent the people that were elected from, but actually try to represent the views and make sure those views were heard in the process. So I think that's one of the interesting development that we discussed. But I'm sure Kuo and others would add.
Let me also put in my 5 cents worth of it. Now, I'm also from Hong Kong, and I think a world about the benefits of the functional constituency. I think it is the forerunner of the multi-stakeholder model. And even, I think in China, they started to have this multi-stakeholder model far back in 1949. They have this model. So for that reason, I think China is a forerunner of multi-stakeholderism. They have this in the so-called the political consultative service, 政协. Okay, then they have gotten the people from every sector of the society represented together, not only by vote, not only by populations and populists, but also by functions, by professions, by their locations, and by their what they can contribute. They call the stakes. So 政协, political consultation, is exactly what multi-stakeholderism is all about. And we are just in the West rediscovering what the Chinese have been doing for the last 70 years. And because the key word is a stake. Who has a stake in this? But then the other key word back in the question is, when the question in mind, is it for public goods? Is it a global resource? We believe that the internet is a global resource, and that's why it belongs to everybody. And that's why we call for everybody who chips in this, everybody who works in this, should be involved. So they call stake. Now then, how about the user? The user of internet, are they stakeholders? Of course they are, because their lives, their everything is now become dependent on the internet and can be easily affected by what we decide on the MAC, on the multi-stakeholder decision of the internet governance. And how could they be represented in the multi-stakeholder scheme of things? But of course, then you talk about equal footing, okay, equal weight, equal participation. That could never be materialized. Of course, the people of interest will spend more time in participating in the discussion and the decision making. And the people, especially the user, okay, the general user like myself knows how to turn on my computer, how to use the browser, how to click on and send an email, and that's it. I don't know what are these decisions about IP's process, IP protocols, routing, service locations, and data stream conversion, all these things. These are all decisions that are made for them. All these technological decisions are made for them. and they were not being briefed of how the decisions are made, and yet their lives and their actions are all dependent upon what we decide for them. And how could they participate in the whole process of decision making? I think that's the crux. Are users a stakeholders? I put it to you.
Okay, well, I think Dr. Ho incited a very typical example for us, 正邪, yeah, in Chinese. I think it's a very, very typical example to interpret multi-stakeholder in Chinese way, in Chinese culture. And I also caught the key words of the multi-stakeholder is stakeholder. Who is the stakeholder and how to promote the stakeholder to cooperate? That's the key and that's the core of the multi-stakeholder. And anybody else? Yeah.
Let me try to say that. Basically, actually, the multi-stakeholder, the first thing is that you have to be, just like you say, the stake. Who's the stake? But very important, how to select this stake is with the legitimacy. If this stake is not legitimacy, he cannot represent this stakeholder. In ICANN case, it's very different. In ICANN case, for example, the domain name, you have GTLD, you have a CCTLD, you have a registry, you have a registrar. All the member is very clear. I'm talking about user later on, but I'm talking about the name, registry, and registrar. The member is very clear. Second of all, for example, like CCTLD is clear. It's running by the CC operator. And of course, you are talking about IP, it's running by IR. IR is also a membership organization. Anyone can join as an IR member. They can speak out in the IR. Even you are a single user, you can go to IR meeting without pay any fee. You can walk in. If you don't have a cost to fly there, you can go to the email. You can go to the internet, current technology to speak there. Even you can send a text, even can send a short message to explain your point. And user, I agree. User is very difficult to identify. Or for example, in ICANN, right now we have a government advice committee. How many government is participating in the ICANN GAG? 164 countries. 164. Okay. And user, yes, I agree. User is very difficult. I can try very hard to develop in at large. I agree, it's not perfect. If you ask me, I would prefer consumer association to join in to represent the user, because a consumer association in many countries have much better representative of the user. But is a consumer association willing to join ICANN or not? I don't know. We love to. We love the consumer association to join ICANN. But many consumer associations in every country, they have other things to do, like a food, like other things, securities, many things. And I wish sooner or later, the consumer association see the internet is their consumer right. So they're willing to join ICANN to present the user. And I think there will be a much better structure. And again, ICANN didn't run internet. Don't confuse about it. ICANN only do 3 things: IP, domain name, and coordinate root server. Who run the internet? Everyone. If you have a server connect to the internet, you run part of the internet. So internet is not running by a single organization. It's running by everyone.
Okay. Many thanks to Goi's comments. And I think at least we have to face three things here. The first one is who is the stakeholders? And the second one is how to make them work together. Because if we can see stakeholder just means different representatives from different groups. That's not the true multi-stakeholder. That just it just means the different people. So when we talk about multi-stakeholder, the most important is how to make them work together and make the multi-stakeholder to deliver the results. And the third one is oh, sorry, I forgot it. Okay, so we just have to finish this round and go to the second round. And here I want to make some changes of our format here because I inspired from Jiarong's questions to Leonid. So in the second round, I would like to ask our panelists to propose some questions to each other. And you can boost some debates between the different panelists, okay? I think maybe it will be dynamic and interesting to the audience. Who will be the first?
Easy one. And since you're very strict on timing, I'll keep it very short. So my friend Jerong, how do you say multi-stakeholder in Vietnamese?
Oh, sorry. Before that, I have to ask you to make the comments very, very short within 1 minute.
I think in Vietnamese, because it's an evolving language, they can use the same word exactly, so it will be multi-stakeholder.
Okay. Who will be the second one to eat the crab?
Well, that's a question probably to Jiarong as well. So in ICANN, at ICANN, the board is elected by several groups of stakeholders. Yet another part of the board is elected through the so-called nominating committee, which is a black box. We don't know who applied for the board and how those boards are selected. So my question to Jiarong is, isn't it time to get rid of that nominating committee and announce direct elections of board members by all the people who are at ICANN and those who want to join in?
This is a very hard question for me to answer. I'll start with a caveat first regarding how ICANN is structured and how certain processes are formed. So even a process like why is it there is a nominating committee who selects certain board members that's not nominated from the stakeholder groups and advisory committees is also decided by a multi-stakeholder process. In other words, it is not people like me, staff, who decide how ICANN is structured. So, for example, you've heard of the INR stewardship transition at this IGF, AprIGF, and also probably the last 2 years AprIGFs. And you keep hearing about the community talking about the process for coming up with a proposal. Process for coming up with a proposal, not the proposal. That was the first step. Likewise, in this stage, why is there a nominating committee is also because of a process that was started that decided that ICANN's board should consist of nominated board members from their stakeholder groups, as well as creating a nominating committee that would find key people from around the world that can be board members, and that these board members will be neutral and not be having to look after their particular stakeholder groups or constituencies that nominated them up to the board. So this is my best way of answering the question, because it's really not up to me as a staff to raise it. But Leonid, you raised a very good point, and I think if there are more people who think the same way, you can raise it in ICANN, and we can look at a process to this. I think Edmund may be able to add more.
Edmund Chung here, just adding a little bit to it. I guess the history and others. Koei, you stepped outside the room. I'm sure you would add to this. Why are basically half of the ICANN board is selected by the nominating committee? It's not that ICANN didn't try a direct election. A global direct election was tried, and probably some will say failed spectacularly. But it's easy to understand. Like, well, a number of the seats were supposed to be elected by anybody who has an email address. Well, obviously, the winning candidate is the one who has the most email addresses, right? So that makes it very difficult. The other reason, I think, as Jarong mentioned, is to try to get new blood into the process and try to get people who has governance experience, but not necessarily in the technical or ICANN community, to actually contribute to building the institution that we need in terms of ICANN. Rather than asking the question of why, how the board, number of board members are chosen, maybe the next question should be how the CEO is chosen. Shouldn't that be elected? And recently, when you look at the United Nations Secretary General, well, not election, but kind of election, the process is much more open, at least, even not kind of direct voting by the whole world population. Maybe those are some institutional changes that can happen, and there is this accountability work stream too that continues to think about how we can create better accountability. And I want to end with something in terms of multi-stakeholder systems or structures. One key feature, I think, is a continual update or a continual revamp of the system itself. ICANN now, some people say it's 3.0, 4.0. At least we've gone through many iterations in terms of the constitutional structure. And that is one very important part of, I think, the multi-stakeholder approach for internet governance, because the internet moves so fast.
Okay, so I give the floor to Dr.
So,
Gong.
yeah, actually, I have two questions for the panelists, especially for Leonid, Jarong, and Raj, because you come from three very famous international organizations. Yeah, as for the question, what is really the stake and what is the stakeholder? In my opinion, I think that maybe the stakeholder, the term is not very accurate term, because at the term, maybe people will think that the people who don't have the stake, that he has no interest with the internet, he should not have the opportunity to connect it with the internet. So I don't think it's correct, because I think internet nowadays is the infrastructure is just like the water, just like the air. So that means even not the internet users, that means maybe in some very poor area, the people cannot connect it with the internet, but the internet more or less affect their real lives. So how to think about this kind of people, and how to get the opinions, comments from this kind of people, especially some very weak people. And maybe some people that they don't really want to connect with the internet. They really enjoy their current lives. How to thought about this? Yeah.
Well, let me just put in my 1 minute, okay? I just want to challenge the word stakeholder, okay? Because it is a euphemism for interest groups. If you have an interest in it, you're a stakeholder, okay? So do we want the internet to be controlled by interest groups? We're talking about governments, government's interest group. How about big corporations? How about technical people whose livelihoods depends on the technical know-how and the successes of the internet? These interest groups. Then how about the people who are affected by the use of internet, the users? But typically, the users could care less. They don't know. They don't know details. And they have no so-called interest in the interest, not benefits interests, okay? But if you draft the Consumer Council, in Hong Kong, I run many of these advisory committees. I know the people who are at large have the least interest of participating. They won't show up in meetings, even the show up meetings, they don't have anything to offer, and they're just sitting there. And do you call that representation? Okay. So I think there's something there for us to talk about. Then the second point I would like to put to you is something called representativeness. Should we use elections? A lot of this time, elections will not be effective. So in many of the situations where we cannot really cast votes and put it into a true election, we use appointment system. Appointment system is typicalization, meaning assuming that the whole group is uniform and homogeneous, then we pick one representative one of the whole lot. It's just like when my wife buys oranges, okay, we cannot ask the whole bag of oranges to vote among themselves who's the best. So my wife just picked the best looking one and taste it, okay? If it tastes good, assuming that the whole lot is good, so she bought the oranges. And that means that we just pick one that's typified, that bears all the typical characteristics of the whole lot, and have him or her to represent the lot, meaning that her views, her interests, her behavior, and her decisions will be representative, quote unquote, of the whole lot. But what that really gives us a legitimate way of making a decision, the problem of legitimacy that really kicks in.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm very happy to see our discussion have a broader scope and go up to the philosophical level. Yeah, it's very, very great. And I saw Asha raise her hand from ICANN. Yeah, the phone microphone, please. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Sasha Hemrajani on the ICANN board and also a proud Hong Konger like yourself. So I have two comments to make. First of all, Dr. Ho, I really, your first comment, your opening remarks when in the beginning of this panel really struck a chord with me, because you said something about multi-stakeholderism being a tool, a means to an end, a toolbox. And I couldn't agree with you more. While I'm a big believer of multi-stakeholderism, I think we have to also remind ourselves of the ultimate aim, of the objective of using multi-stakeholderism. It is to have a more inclusive way of including as many different people as possible to govern the internet. So I just wanted to say I really appreciated that comment that you made. So this isn't a question. And the second comment I have is related to what Leo just mentioned about the selection of board members. So as a matter of disclosure, I did go through, I was nominated through the NomCom route. So I'm not going to say that that's a good route because I came through that route, but I wanted to remind you, Leo, of the comment you made in the previous panel that we had this morning about the same 3,000 or 2,000 people being in the IG space. And I think this is one way to get new blood, as Edmund mentioned. I think we do have an issue in terms of not being able to involve more people. I think I would like, we would all like to see more new blood involved in IG, and this is just one possible way. So thank you.
Who want to respond to? I think Roger.
Okay, boss. Okay. In response to what Ning was saying, I think, again, so let me use the word aspire. We aspire for everyone to contribute to these discussions on internet governance and be part of the multi-stakeholder model. But there's some practicalities that come in the way. Number one, as I think maybe it was Patrick who said that not everyone may be interested to contribute, or if they come and sit, it'd be a bit of a snore for them because they have no idea what's happening, can't understand the jargon, and they go back and say, okay, never again. So that's one bit. And the other bit, of course, is that you can't force people to engage in the discussion if they don't want to. And why they do not want to engage in the discussion, maybe for various reasons. It could be language, it could be no time, it could be no money to come and attend the meetings and participate. So there's multiple factors that come out there. Earlier today, I was in a discussion with someone else, and a similar sort of thread came up there that how do you get more people involved in the discussions? How do you get them to participate? And perhaps the only real way to do it is using that representative model where someone would typify the sort of consensus for a group of people, which would then come into meetings such as this and other meetings, and then you could take it further. The Kuowei also made a great comment before that if you look at the RIR meetings, for example, and most of, I think, the meetings in this community at large, you can always contribute in some way or form, mailing list, even SMS, as he said, and so on. So the opportunity to participate is there, but not everyone takes up that opportunity for various reasons. So that's why I said earlier that, for me, a multi-stakeholder is giving people the opportunity to participate. That doesn't mean they will participate, nor does it mean that you force them to participate, but the opportunity is there.
Thank you. I'll just use one example to illustrate, I think, because what we are saying now is a little bit abstract. So I'll use a practical example to illustrate what is a stakeholder and when do you think you become a stakeholder and so on. And this is also a little caveat at the start. It's a little advertisement for the next session at 4:30, which is on IDNs. Okay, so let's take stakeholder now, and you think I'm a normal person. Everyone in this room is a normal person, and we're using the internet day to day. We can speak English, right? And imagine if you cannot use English, and you think, oh, I don't know how to key facebook.com, so I can't go onto Facebook. I don't really know how to use the internet. So you think I'm not an internet stakeholder. Then someday, one person comes to you and says, the domain name system doesn't need to use English anymore. You can use your own language. What if, so if I speak Arabic, for example, so now Arabic, you can type Arabic on the URL link, and you can find the page you want in Arabic, everything is in Arabic. Immediately you become a stakeholder, right? Because you are able to do that. Now, the step from using English to Arabic doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not, boom, it happens like this. You need different people who know the language well enough, who know how to code it, to create that system that allows for Arabic use in domain names. Now, where do you find these people? We just shout out and say, hey, who's interested? Do you want to join? It's not that simple, right? You have to make the effort to go and find the right linguists who actually know the Arabic language very well enough to be able to decipher what letter can be inside the domain name and what cannot first. And then you need the people who know the code as well. And you need people who know policies related to the language, the education system, how is the language being used. Bring all these people together and find what's the best way to allow the use of the Arabic language, the script, to be used for domain names. Now, that's only step one. Now, step two is, okay, we can now use domain names for these, but where are the companies and the users and the people who will put content onto these pages? We need to find these people as well. So it's finding the stakeholders, getting them to understand that they can use it, and only when you realize, oh, actually I can use Arabic for the internet, then you realize that you have a stake in it. So that little stake, as much as we don't have a better word for it, but what I'm trying to illustrate here is really that at different points in different time, you realize that you might have a stake or two in the internet that you're using, even if today it might not happen, it might not be relevant for you, but tomorrow it doesn't mean it's no longer relevant, it's not relevant for you anymore. The technology evolves that it could be more inclusive, and it could allow for you previously with no stake in it to have a stake today. So that's something that I hope to just share.
Okay, I saw the audience is very active to join in this discussion. So I'll give the floor to Rinalia.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Rinalia Abdurrahim. I'm from Malaysia. I'm also an ICANN board member, and I'm the one who is selected or elected by the community of individual internet users around the world And I want to make two comments. One is I've been engaged in multi-stakeholderism since 1998. And since then, there is always agreement that it's a great thing, that we need to do it and it's beneficial. However, the frustration about the multi-stakeholder process itself has not dissipated. And we continue to be addressing it to see how can we make it more effective. And there is some improvement, but I don't think we're there yet. I just also want to address the point that Patrick Ho mentioned about end users, because I come from that community and I see the challenges that end users have in engaging in these different communities, whether it is at ICANN or at the numbers community or at the Internet Engineering Task Force. And I can tell you that the primary barrier is actually having the vocabulary to be able to engage effectively. And I think what would work, because I had seen it before, is to have capacity building programs that actually support these end users to prepare them to understand the issues and to go in and engage. Even if you were to make them a representative of a group to go in with the authority to engage, that's not enough. They need to have that learning. Without that, and unless they're willing to put aside significant amounts of time to do it, nothing will happen. Thank you.
Okay. So do you want any panelists to respond to you?
Actually, I'd like Edmund to talk about some of the capacity building efforts that you've initiated in your organization in this area, because I think I see good in that, and I think it having a beneficial effect.
Thank you for giving me an advertisement section. No, actually, well, speaking about capacity building, I think it is definitely one of the most important challenges for this internet governance and multi-stakeholder model. From Asia, I guess from .Asia, we have been supporting a lot of youth to come to these programs at ICANN, at IETF, at IGF as well. But one thing that we've learned actually, and related to some of the items that Patrick has mentioned, is in order to get new people to participate and get younger people to participate in a meaningful way, you can't just throw them into the discussion. Yes, the doors are all open. What we call multi-stakeholder, the doors are open, the mics are open, but if you just rush there and start talking, it doesn't really contribute to the process. What we've learned over time is the training program, role-playing program that actually initiate them into the discussion, let them understand what is going to be discussed, especially, for example, at ICANN, what are the key sessions that discussions going to happen. Let them discuss among themselves first, and try to come up with their own recommendations, and then go to the bigger discussion. So I think the capacity building, that a lot of that can be learned from that experience as well. And actually, Jarong and the ICANN APAC hub team has been experimenting a little bit with this concept as well. Is trying to get the Asia Pacific participants to ICANN to gather, to convene, and to discuss certain issues that are actively being discussed at ICANN as a breeding ground, a testing ground of some of the arguments, and then taking it to the larger discussion. I think that's one of the things that we learned that is very useful. The other thing about I think capacity building is that the multi-stakeholder approach, as you said, is understood to be really good, but it is somewhat challenging for especially Asian cultures. We talked about cultural differences, and a lot of people from the Asian community are defer to authorities, and they're not comfortable going out and speaking up in that capacity. And also in the international policy development process, it usually defer to the government. So the UN model is what the Asian countries have started to know how to, quote unquote, play the game. But suddenly this multi-stakeholder model is thrown in, and suddenly the businesses, the civil society, which is not as strong in bringing up policy discussions from these countries, are required to do it, or else their voices are not being heard. So that's another challenge from the Asia Pacific region, I think, specifically, and how we do capacity building for businesses willing to send people out to these forums and to these discussions, and also building up civil society in these areas to actually come and contribute. That's going to be a huge challenge ahead of us too.
Oh, okay, I understand the 1 minute is so difficult for our audience and panelists, but please do make your comments very, very short. Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to go more deep in particularly the stakeholder issues. I use an example to say that the Uber created a problem in Taiwan. And the government actually talked to Uber and talked to the taxi driver. Based on Patrick, you say, these two interest group, right? But why government didn't ask consumer? So in that case, multi-stakeholder can help. Supposedly government should invite consumer to ask why you want to use the Uber. You don't want to use in the taxi. Why you only asking from the two interest group? But I didn't mean interest group have no right to explain. Of course, interest group is part of the stakeholder too. But the key point in the multi-stakeholder, all the interest group, including consumer, should have a channel to voice, to speak out, to explain what they feel and what their opinion is. And government have to take all in, understand in the balance to solve it.
Let me have my 1 minute, okay? I agree with you. Let me play the devil's advocate. The multi-stakeholder process is a goodwill process of democratization of the whole internet governance to the people. Whereas democracy is ruled by the people, but the multi-stakeholderism as it stands today with the stakeholders are ruled by the interest groups. The interest groups, ruled by the interest group, is a minority of the people. It's just as bad as ruled by the governments. So without the people, without the consumer, we're defeating the whole purpose of the multi-stakeholderism. And this is the crux of difficulty of really implementing multi-stakeholderism, is to engage the end user, the netizen. Without them, you cannot call it being totally representative of all the stakeholders.
Okay, before that, I know we are multi-stakeholder participation. So I please allow me to borrow 5 minutes from the coffee break. Is it okay? Okay. Do we have anyone else to propose the questions? Where? No? No? So what about our panelists? Yeah, okay.
I have a question to Raj. Raj, if I were Mr. Putin, would there be any 3 reasons you would put forward to convince me that multi-stakeholderism is not as bad as as Mr. Putin would think?
So that I mean,
okay.
I'm a multi-stakeholder person.
You're a multi-stakeholder person. I'm Mr. Putin. Three reasons. Why should I believe multi-stakeholder stuff is good?
It's got nothing to do with oil supplies to Europe.
Forget oil.
For Mr. Putin, look, that's a tough one, man. Well, the other one I want to say is that I don't rustle bears, so but that's not going to work out either. I don't swim with sharks. That's not going to help either. What would you say to Mr. Putin? I don't know. I mean, that's a great question.
That's a matter of belief. It's not that rational arguing, you know. I mean, Mr. Putin is a rational man, in a way, in his own sense.
But I suppose then what you'd want to do is try and convince him that multi-stakeholder processes will help with whatever his objectives may be.
What if his objective
Whatever his objective
is
fuzzy,
to invade
right?
yet another country? Then what? Multi-stakeholder is also good for that.
So,
Multi-stakeholder agreement process is good for that.
Well, then he can liaise with people, talk with people, and say, "Look, I'm going to go invade this country. Is that okay with you?" Okay, away he goes.
Well, I can buy that.
So that's one. I'll stop there. Someone else take the other one.
Okay.
It looks like you don't want me to come to Russia. That's very obvious right there.
Yeah, great. I love the session very much. Yeah. And I think the time is always flying. And we know the discussion we need more time and space to bring the discussion to a broader scope. But today we have to finish it. I know I should obey the laws and rules and orders of our organizing committee. And in the end, I would like to share two sayings here. One is there is thousands of Hamlet in thousands readers' eyes. Am I right? Yes. So multi-stakeholder, everybody has understanding of every multi-stakeholder in your mind. And the other thing is the Chinese saying. It said that the oranges grow up as oranges in the south of the river. But when we put the plant the oranges at the north land of the river, they are not the oranges. But we still have the oranges in the northern area. Why? Because we can make some changes to plant it. So how we explain it, the multi-stakeholder, maybe we can boost another discussion in the next year's AprIGF. Okay? Thank you for your listening and participation.
very good question. Actually, the Italian fascists were first, the high corporatist parliament. Well, no, I mean, corporatism is used on the left and on the right. You know, it's. But it's not multi-stakeholder. Multi-stakeholder, I didn't want to go into the debate, but you know, the innovation of the IGF was that everybody is together around the same table. Whereas if you have constituencies, what we do in ICANN, you're not really multi-stakeholder. Because at CCW2, you're a multi-stakeholder because they all work together. But that's I'm sorry, I ran out of mine.
没准备太好，说实话，你看前面中间卡壳了好多次。真的卡壳好多次，而且我就说 I forgot that, forgot the third point。没关系，有时候这些比较轻松。对，我就想他们准备的不充分，不过我觉得你们很烂，我看到那都很烂。Orange, eat the orange。还有那个好，所以你就说的跟绕口令。对呀，你说的跟绕口令啊。是，你翻过来是有点奇怪。对，因为不会翻啊，然后我就说不会翻就讲绕口令好了。弄晕了。好玩啊！好玩啊！所以我要请我的 panelist forgive me because I kick the balls。单人局也可以切磋。对啊。因为我觉得这样讲对难度好大，那不是这样吗？听着都会让他们笑掉。不过我觉得这个每个人要的声音不一样。而且其实我觉得教课后真的好一些，非常亮，非常有亮。那个，我不是刚刚我还在说你今天的几个点超级亮，非常赞。然后好多个点，我觉得讲的也是切中要害。
您的位置也非常的这个合适。
真的，我觉得这一场还是挺活跃的。我觉得真的高度绝对有的，尤其是您那几个哲学性的问题提出来之后，我觉得真的效果特别好。不过我们对，不过确实是我们这次。 最后，对，非常感谢您。如果说真的，我一开始确实不在状态。因为其实当时加荣一上来就被挑战，然后然后加荣就把问题丢回给曹老师的时候，我当时在想，我要转变一下方式，因为你后面如果谈那些你不的问题就没意思了，所以我说我就 make some change。你们互相挑战好。其实我跟你说，之前我们说过，我说的 stop， 说你们不要太，因为到时候我害怕现场我 hold 不住怎么办 ？Easy， I can hold you。我觉得耳目一新，确实是。好了，我要走了。然后我说我 I forgot that point 那个是真的忘了。淑一问我说：“你是在搞笑吗？”我说：“不是搞笑，是忘记了。”说的那么光明磊落。不是啊，那总比我在那里想，看见尴尬好多。时间没电，我要走喽，同志们。哎，彤彤，楠楠有没有说周五教什么？我让他问人家
Without engaging the public, you know, just as good intergovernmental.
I'm Renalia.
Daniel.
Nice to meet you. So he's following you around.
Yeah. He's also from Hong Kong. He's born and raised, but he's a Pakistani.
Yeah, quite a few people like you.
何主席，那我们以后有机会再交流，谢谢啊。那我们就先走了，拜拜。妈呀，我先走了，因为我还要赶去上海。
没问题，去。
别的会。
再见。
走了，拜拜。
Okay, pleasure. Thank you.
Come Hong Kong, see us.
Definitely. I like flying to Hong Kong. I miss things from there.
Okay, so what do you do besides full-time ICANN? Nobody can do full-time ICANN. For what?
I do management consulting and I do IT for development, strategy and advocacy consulting.
Okay, good.
Yeah, doing ICANN full-time is driving me mad. It's true. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, very good. Some color time.
Surprising that you know.
It's where you see the sea turtles laying eggs.
Exactly.
No, no, I'm just a moderator. Someone is coming.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
What we can do is also use another call, right? Because you have the same next slide anyway. Yeah, you reach all
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Late waiting.
I know. How are you?
Fine.
Good.
So you have the good trip to here?
Yes.
Right.
I looked at the pictures.
Really bad. I was really, really, feel bad.
And you have a yellow, I mean, a pink tag.
Yes. What is scary to me is that in Songshan Airport of Taipei, we will have the Holocaust chicken counter, check-in counter.
Check-in counter.
Chicken counter.
Oh, pink.
That's funny.
I was so scared.
Are you staying?
Yes, I'll be on there.
So the difference.
Everyone wears. Oh, it's all standard wear.
Everything.
Yeah.
Go to Orchard Road. He's like,
Overqualified. I mentioned to someone, maybe I can help.
No, he would. Yeah, come on. Who's going to run APEC?
All right, I think it's 4 o'clock. So let's start. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming in on time. And usually this topic, we've done this a couple of times at AprIGF and it's usually a very small group. But today I'm quite glad we have more than the usual very small group. So thank you very much for your support. And especially if you joined our earlier session, which was pretty fun. I did a little bit of advertising for this session. It's really talking about how the domain name system is changing and expanding. Before I get ahead of myself, my name is Jarong. I lead the Asia Pacific Hub for ICANN, covering the Asia Pacific region. And now I shall introduce our speakers for today. Thereafter, then I'll run through the order of proceedings and our program and what we are going to discuss. So on my left here is Rinalia Abdurrahim. She's our ICANN board member. And she also is a member of the Arabic Generation Panel. Later on, you'll understand what the generation panels mean. And on my left here is Hiro Hota. He's the Director of Japan Registry Services, JPRS. And to my extreme left is Dr. Kenny Huang, Board of Directors of Taiwan Network Information Center, or TWNIC. And on my right here is Wanawit, Deputy Executive Director for the Thailand Electronic Transactions Development Agency. And joining us remotely is Mr. Rapid Sun. He's the Vice President of the National Institute of Post and Telecommunications Information Communication Technology, also known as NIPTICT. When the speakers, before you present, just introduce yourself a little bit so people know where you're from and why you're looking at the various language generation panels, label generation panels, so that it helps the newcomers in the room. Now, as I mentioned, this session is about internationalized domain names. And really the key here is that the domain name system is expanding and changing, and you are no longer restricted to having to use English characters. The technical term for English characters for domain names is called ASCII, ASCII. So you won't be restricted to using ASCII only, but you can use other scripts. And this doesn't happen in a vacuum, because even though this program called the IDN program is initiated by ICANN staff alone cannot manage this. Why? Because I speak 3 languages, but if you ask me, can I contribute to the Arabic panel? There's no way I can contribute to that panel. We need to have community members from that language community come together and decide what characters or letters can become a domain name. And from there, we take things forward to fully implement it. And eventually, this would help entire local communities be able to come online. Because right now, I'll use one very simple example. My father, who doesn't speak English, he said, the internet is very good, you know. Oh, it's this very interesting thing. You can see a lot of things on it. But there's one serious problem with it. Now it's like, what's the problem? You have to know how to spell. And I realized that there was a serious problem, you know. But being able to type in his own language would then allow him to really be empowered to come online. And that's what we're all hoping to do through the various label generation panels, that is either the work is completed or the work is in progress. So I shall now hand over the time to Renalia, who will give an introduction of the IDN program and why it is important. So I'll hand over to you, please.
Thank you, Chiarong. Hello, everyone. First of all, an apology. I have a bit of a cold and it's affecting my voice, so I don't sound like my normal self. And in case the volume goes down, please just raise your hand and I'll try to exert myself further. I'd like to start by setting a bit of context first in terms of why IDNs matter for our world. I'm sure that most of you know this already. We have in the world today about 3 billion internet users. Nearly half of the users are from our region, the Asia-Pacific region. However, the Asian internet penetration is still considered to be low, and we expect the majority of the next billion internet users to be from Asia. Next slide. And here is the context for internationalized domain names, or IDNs. So we live in a multilingual world with very diverse writing systems and scripts. There are more than 7,000 living languages in the world, and about 50% spoken in the Asia-Pacific region itself. Now, the number of writing systems and languages is smaller than number of languages because some languages follow oral tradition, they are not written down, and because some languages actually share the use of a script. For example, the languages of Chinese, Korean, and Japanese share the use of a script called the Han script. The Arabic script, as another example, is shared by more than 50 languages across Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Now, IDNs are meant to serve the online needs of a world that is diverse in languages and scripts. And IDNs became possible at all levels, and what I mean by levels is second level, third level, top level of domain names, after the Internet Engineering Task Force developed the IDN in Application Protocol in 2003, so we have them to thank for it. The IDN top-level domains have been supported through community-led initiatives and coordinated by ICANN, initially through the introduction of the IDN fast-track process for country code TLD, what we normally refer to as IDN CC-TLD, and eventually through the new generic top-level domain program in 2013, what we refer to as the IDN G-TLD program. Prior to all of this, all TLDs have been in the form of ASCII, which is a subset of the Latin script, as Chiarong mentioned earlier. Next slide. So, internationalized domain names, or IDNs, are domain names that can be represented in scripts or writing systems in addition to the Latin script. And by enabling IDNs, local communities can come online by accessing domain names entirely in their own languages and scripts. And I think here it would be useful to briefly recap why domain names in general matter to internet users. And forgive me if it's a little basic, but I think we have new participants to the Asia Pacific Regional IGF, and I think it's worthwhile to just run through it. So domain names are used when users access and use email. If you look at your email address after the @ sign, there are domain name labels, and that's where they are relevant. Domain names are also used when users access content via web browsers. We typically type domain names in the URL. They are used when users access or use mobile apps. Sometimes you don't actually see it. It's actually hidden by the application developer, but it exists and it's used. They are also used for signing up for online services and for authentication and by application providers to serve users. So they're actually quite important. Without domain names, using the internet becomes much harder for us. Almost impossible, I would say, unless you can remember numbers, long sequences of numbers. Without IDNs, users that go online with various scripts and keyboards will not fully benefit from having access to the internet. And even if you have multiple keyboards, some people have difficulties toggling between Latin script and non-Latin script keyboards. Next, please. So earlier we talked about ASCII and IDNs, and here's the form. Normally ASCII, you will see www.cafe.com, with third level domain being www, cafe being second level domain, and com being top level domain. And on the right, you will see a script, beautiful script in Thai, and IDN second level domain and IDN top level domain. What does that mean? Can you say? Sample. Sample or test or something like that. Yes. So this is just to show you the difference between ASCII and IDN top level domains. Next. So I will just give you an overview of the IDN program at ICANN. There is a lot going on, and I won't run through this one by one, so I'll just give you brief highlights. ICANN's IDN top-level domain program generally promotes the use of IDNs. The program focuses on engaging script communities around the world to develop rules, and these rules are used to define valid and unique top-level domains. So on this slide, you will see a sub-bullet that says label generation rules. Just remember that. That's, I'm going to come back to that, and that's where the communities come together to develop the rules. In addition, ICANN continues to support the evaluation and delegation of IDN top-level domain labels, which result in country code top-level domain and generic top-level domain in diverse scripts. ICANN is also undertaking projects to promote better user experience, including developing guidelines and reference IDN tables for the second level, and working on general accessibility of domain names through the community-led Universal Acceptance Initiative. Next, please. And here you see a map of the world that shows you the IDN country code top-level domains. And these are examples of the IDN CCTLD labels that have been successfully evaluated by ICANN so far, and they are in the Internet Root Zone, which allows users across the globe to access domain names in their scripts and languages. And here I'd like to draw your attention to India, where you notice that there are more than 10 scripts representing their country's name. And you can actually apply for this if actually in your country you have use of multiple scripts for your population. Next. To pave the way for different scripts to be used in top-level domains, communities using each script or writing system must come together to decide what characters or letters can be used and the rules for them. I think it's fair to say that without these rules, the TLDs that have variant forms cannot exist, and that's going to be a problem for users. And we need the community to do the work in order for the labels to be available. Next. Here is an example of the work that I have done together with the Arabic script community, just to show you what variants look like. You see the letter kaf or K in Arabic in two different colors circled. Yeah. The Arabic kaf red and the Persian kaf green have the same shape when they are joined. And it's a problem because you cannot tell what the original character is. And rules are needed to manage these variants in terms of when they can be used or when they cannot be used. Similarly, rules need to determine the number of variants which can be used. Sometimes languages that have a lot of variants have too many variants, and not all of them can be allowed. So there is work to be done by language and script communities. Next. Here we come back to the root zone label generation rules development status, and this is the project that brings script community together. ICANN supports this work strongly by working with local communities to come together to establish what we call generation panels. And we call them generation panels because the group generates the, the rules that are used to form IDN top-level domains. This work is ongoing. We are continuously encouraging different language communities and script communities to come together because we know the world is diverse. There are lots of scripts, and if you want them to be available for domain names, the work needs to be done. So this slide highlights over 12 generation panels working on various scripts or writing systems. For the Asia-Pacific region, Korean, Lao, and Thai generation panels were the most recently established in the past year, and the Khmer generation panel has finished its work. Next. And here's a brief overview of the root zone label generation rules procedure. You have the different scripts working to generate their results. But because we have only one single internet root zone, the label generation rules for all the scripts must be integrated into a single root zone label generation rule set. If you are familiar with the Lord of the Rings, there is one ring to rule them all. This is it. This means there will be some coordination challenges, and we need communities of scripts and different scripts to work together to make sure that there are no what we call collisions or conflicts, and these are my own words, so don't take it too seriously. In terms of coordination challenges, some writing systems share the same script, so there is a need to coordinate for variant sets, such as Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, all using the Han script. And the other coordination challenge is some writing systems have cross-script variant letters, so there is a need to coordinate and identify them. These are letters that look similar to each other and may be confusing to users. And so, for example, some letters among Khmer, Lao, and Thai look very similar, and some letters among Armenian, Cyrillic, Greek, and Latin look the same as letters in other scripts in this set. And our speakers on the panel today will talk about their experiences working on their own scripts and will provide an update on cross-community coordination work, which can be quite challenging, and you'll get a better idea of what the work entails. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renalia. Okay, let's move on. So what happens now is that I'll hand the time over to the other speakers. Each speaker will spend about 10 minutes updating about the work of their scripts generation panel. Then after, so I hand the time to Hero first, after that Kenny. Then after that, both speakers will speak about the cross-community work for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. But I will make sure that I will be your timekeeper. So when the time is up, I will tell you. Thereafter, then we will hand over the time to Rapid, who will join us remotely, followed by Wanawit. And then they will talk about their own respective label generation panels, followed by the Khmer, Lao, Thai cross-community work. So we'll just do Japanese and Chinese first, followed by the CJK cross-community work. Hand the time to Hero, please. Thank you.
Hi. Yes. My name is Hiro from Hiro Hota from JPRS. JPRS is a CCTD registry for .jp. I'm a chair of Japanese generation panel, which is one of the generation panels, language generation panels, which Linaria introduced. Today, I'll talk about the brief activity history and the main issues for us. So this is a list of JGP meetings and related events. So we've already have 2 years experience for meeting and researching and investigating how the top-level domain, Japanese top-level domain should be ruled. So these are the members of the Japanese generation panel. And I'm a chair, and Akinori Maemura, who will be, he's a vice chair, and he will be succeeding Koei Wu as a ICANN board member. And we have a few professors from internet world and from trademark and domain name experts. And one, Yoshitaka Murakami, is from registry, GTD registry expert. And Shuichi Shiro is character code, especially the Unicode expert. And Yoshiro Yoneya is an IDN and DNS expert. So we have a lot of expertise, a variety of expertise in our panel. So this is one of the requirement to have the various expertise in the panel. So as Linaria mentioned, CJK, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean language shares a lot of characters in common. So these are called Han character in Chinese, and we call them kanji, and Korean call them hanja. And as this picture shows, the Han characters are shared by 3 languages. So this is one of the big issue to be solved. So I will explain this later. And Kenny here is a co-chair of a Chinese generation panel. So we always talk, fight, and something, right? Now we are friends. Okay. And this figure shows that Chinese generation panel needs to define the rule for Han character, only Han character. But Japanese generation panel has to define the rules for Han character and hiragana and katakana, because in Japanese language, we use Han, katakana, hiragana all at the same time in a document. And for Korean, Han and Hangul, they use them in a mixed way. So these 3 generation panels has to collaborate to define at least the Han character rules. So this is a framework for CJK LGR integration. LGR means a label generation rule. LGR integration for Han characters. And this procedure is already agreed by all 3 generation panels. This means that the Chinese GP, Chinese generation panel, defines their rule first, and Japanese defines our rule first, and Korean their first, and merge them. And if it can be merged in a good way, we don't have to care about that, about the result, but it is not easy to define. I will explain this later, but so we have to communicate, consult, whether this character should be usable as a TLD or not, or this character and that character should be the variant or not. So we have to think about that. I will explain this later, and Kenny will explain that later as well. These are the activities of JGP. We established, formally established in March 2015, and the detailed task description of our panel is almost done because we are still working and new issues are coming up. Not every day, but the new issues are coming up. So detailed task description is always on the way. And some attacks or issues may come out, or attacks may be modified on the way of LGR development through discussion with ICANN or integration panel, through discussion with Chinese GP and Korean GP, and through investigation inside JGP, and through consultation with the community, with Japanese community. And development of Japanese LGR. So CJK LGR integration procedure was developed, as you saw in the figure, agreed and revised by CGPA, JGP, and KGP as a framework. We agreed that as a base. As the input to the procedure, preliminary Japanese LGR, which is called LGR alpha, was developed. And this is the discussion status for Japanese LGR. Scopes of the character codes, as I said, kanji, hiragana, katakana, they should be used as a TLD label. And it is fortunate that we have Japanese industrial standard for kanji. So we borrowed that definition. And variants. So Chinese language or Chinese script has a lot of variant sets. So this means that this character and that character means the same, and they should be regarded as the same character or regarded as one character. But Japanese LGR alpha will define no variants. So this means that all the characters in Japanese language are different, are separate, are independent. Integrated Japanese LGR variants of Chinese LGR alpha and Korean LGR alpha. So this means that if Chinese language definition defines some variants, we import that definition, the variant definition. This means that if Chinese language definition defines this character and that character are the same, Japanese language rule import that definition. WRE, I will skip this because it is not easy to explain. An overview of Japanese LGR. Repertoire. We have more than 6,000 Han characters. And hiragana, katakana, we have around 80. And in total, 6,500 characters can be used as a TLD label. And no variants, as I said. We do consultation with the community. Of course, we post our activities on JGP website, public website, and presentation and discussion about TLD streams with Japan Trademark Association and with various stakeholders in Internet Governance Conference Japan, which is a kind of a national IGF events. And further communication is planned, including public comments within Japanese community and global community through CJK coordination and the ICANN process. And these days, ICANN is thinking about the second level domain labels LGR rule. Second level, something.tld. Something has to have a kind of rule. Submission of public comments to guidelines. And key outstanding issues for CJK coordination. So I listed up 2 issues. One is that definition of variants must be coordinated among CJK. For example, these 2 characters are variants of each other in Chinese, although they are totally different characters in Korean and Japanese language. So then the TLD string is just one. So there's no language context in the TLD string. So users cannot identify that whether that string is Chinese or Japanese or Korean. So there should be one rule. Okay, but Chinese language wants to have these characters as the variants, but Japanese and Korean language wants to have them separate characters or independent characters. In this case, more than 200 groups of Chinese variants are not acceptable in Korean context, so this is a problem. So we have to coordinate and discuss and needs to have one solution. I think Kenny will discuss about this, right? So we decided that we will import anything, so it's easy for me. And the second one is reduction of the number of allocatable labels. For example, I'm sorry. Any combination of characters is allowed in Japanese strings, as I said. And it may make the number of variant strings very huge, as many variant groups are defined by importing Chinese variants. For example, this is a KO University. KO Daigak has 3 variant strings. Okay? Because among 4 characters, among them, 2 characters has 2 variants each. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 variant strings. So if this string is long and long, the number of variant strings may become huge number. So actually, in a Japanese context, these 4 strings are we use all of them, but integration panel requests JGP to reduce the number of allocatable labels because they don't want to have a huge number of reserved variant strings, which will belong to one registrant of a domain name. And JGP is trying to solve it by defining a new LGR for Japanese and proposing a new TLD application verification procedure. We were talking about this new procedure with SALMAD and IP. I think this is, yes, thank you. 10 minutes, more than that.
Thank you. Slightly more than 10 minutes, but you already covered the cross-community coordination, which will then take some time away for that, so that helps a lot. Thank you so much, and I'll hand the time over to Kenny.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kenny Huang, co-chair of Chinese Label Generation Panel, and also Executive Council member of APNIC. And so can you move to the next slide? Okay, this slide introduces the evolution of Chinese character, including the ancient forms such as the oracle bone that was written in the oracle bone. And we have different stages, so the character actually evolved from time to time. And right now, we try to understand what sort of Chinese character we need to put it in our repertoire. So make sure the characters belong to our digital asset. Next slide. That's a Chinese script that evolved, not only evolved, but also spread to other regions, other countries, such as spread to Japan and spread to Korea. And I just realized that Chinese characters spread to Korea starting from the 2nd century and spread to Japan starting from 5th century. And okay, anyway, that's history. Next slide. Okay, last country and region using Chinese character, Chinese script. A majority of Chinese country actually using simplified Chinese character, and Taiwan and also a very selected area using traditional Chinese script. Next slide. Hota-san already mentioned a little bit the point is that the Han character basically not only used by Chinese only, but also used by Korean and used by Japanese. So there are significant amount of character actually is overlap among the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. That's why if we are registered under the second level domain name, and it's okay, we can have your own private rule, CCTL rule to regulate that kind of registration policies. But if we want to register that kind of character, Han character in the root zone, because the root zone is a competing area, we only allow register one character. Who can classify that belong to Chinese or Japanese or Korean? That's why we started to work on this program and eventually try to find out if there's any solution goes on. Next slide. Okay, the variant actually solution in different script. For example, like a CDNC, that's a Chinese Domain Name Consortium. That's majority and the major organization that working on Chinese language technology and promote Chinese language, Chinese domain name registration. And we have different kind of standard published, including the first one, IFC 3743. I'm the co-author of IFC 3743. And we have ITF 4713. And that regulate how we register Chinese character into different forms, such as how we register traditional Chinese character and how we register simplified Chinese character. How these two kind character can be effective at the same time. That's that kind of concept was starting from 15 or 10 years ago. And then for JPIs, such as Hoto-san already mentioned, they don't have variant issue. Although they're using Chinese character as a Japanese character, but you don't have that kind of concern. Even some of the character, you probably even the same form, but you have different meaning. So you don't have that kind of variant issues. Korean basically no such variant issue, but they concerned because some of the core point overlap with Chinese character. That will cause some sort of confusion from Korean community point of view. I suppose even from Japanese community point of view, they also similar concern, but they are willing to collaborate. So let's take away that kind of concern. Next slide. Okay, the coordination principle is not created by the generation panel, it's created by integration panel. The coordination principle, basically you have two kind of coupling proposition. The first one is allocatable. Once you register some certain character, and the certain character, you need to identify whether you will be allocate in the DNS root zone or block, or you will block in the DNS root zone, because the character basically we will different kind of variant. So we need to define how DNS system going to dealing with that kind of variant. Do we need to allocate in the root zone, or we need to block in the root zone? Next slide, please. Probably Hoto-san already covered this bit. For GGP generation panel and Japanese generation panel, how we're going to integrate together, such as we have one table from the one character, that's love in Chinese. And also we have simplified love and traditional love, depends on who you're talking to. And we also have love from Japanese community, JGP. And because we have different kind of for the character and also different variant. When you put it together, you combine what be generated the right hand side. That will be integrated table on the right hand side. Okay, next slide. That is also the rule created by integration panel. Our task will be complete once we finish repertoire, Chinese generation finish repertoire, and we will generate a set of variant set. And go through integration panel consultation, we will whole label evaluation and XML LGR. So eventually, finally, we can generate a CJK generation rule, put it in the root zone to regulate the DNS registration. Next slide. Okay, so far we have already given from our proposal. We propose almost near 20,000 characters. To propose that will belong to the range of Chinese character, and that if you are within the character, user are allowed to register the specific character. Because the first new GTLT already launched, so we didn't apply this rule. But for the next round, if we can come out with the consensus, come out with the integrated solution, that will be effective for the next round, next GTLT open. Okay, next slide. Okay, here comes more detail about how we going to solve that kind of conflict, because we have Chinese character, Japanese character, and Korean character. And there's a number of overlap between, such as JGP, the overlap between JGP and CGP is 6,000, around 6,000. And the overlap between Chinese character and KGP is 4,147. But right now, go through the communication and consultation effort. Right now, we're only dealing with most critical character only between CGP and KGP. And we already reduced the most critical character, reduced down to the 200, 600 character alone after 2-year consultation, debating, fighting. Okay, it's done. Next slide. It's very technical, but anyway, in the future registration form will be something like this. You have first column, that's original registration form. Second column will be from simplified to traditional, from traditional to simplify, automatically activate. The third column will be the variant set for the Chinese character. Next slide. Already introduced by Hoda-san, so I'm not going to repeat in the discussion. Next slide. So what's next? The next still coordinate between the CJK community, and we will adopt guiding principle to seeking a rough consensus, as Hoda-san mentioned. Right now, going through 2-year effort, we already reduced a significant amount of character down to the 200, 600, 260 character overlap that we are still debating how to deal with the 200 character. And we suppose we're going through technical visibility study and also put it into consideration in terms of cultural or social consideration, because some character in different community, they have very, very sincere concern. So we need to evaluate that kind of issue as well. So we are now working from computer science point of view, also from social science point of view. And eventually, a harmonized solution is anticipated before end of 2016. I wish Hoda-san can agree with the time frame. So it's done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we based on the program, we are supposed to have the speakers talk about cross-community work, which they already shared. But maybe let's just spend 5 minutes. Maybe from each, both Hiro and Kenny, if you could share just one comment, like either based on what you think the progress is, and do you think that end of 2016 would be a good timing? That's one question. Another question could be like, what do you see going forward after this work is done?
So Hoda-san going to do the integration, but anyway. So we're talking about, we have overlap. Right now, reduce the size of overlaps 260. That's most severe overlap, especially that kind of pressure, not only from CJK or KGP, CGP or KGP member point of view, but also from the pressure also from the community, because we have language expert community, and they are quite insist some sort of character should be remain the rule they prefer. Such as they also using the character in their own society. So we going through, right now we're trying to do some sort of statistic going through based on the current registration sites from Korean DNS database, and also doing the statistics from TRMNIC database, also from CNIC database, also from Macau and Hong Kong database. Try to find out the frequency of the character being used for the registered domain name, and also the other progress of working on the newspaper statistic, what kind of character being used. We calculate the frequency being used in the different medium according to current most fashionable language. So once we come out all frequency statistic, we try to integrate with the Korean community or even from Japanese community, but actually nothing to do from your side. So we try to compare the different ranking of frequency. And for higher ranking for example, if a character is a higher ranking used in Chinese community, probably lower intend to agree to use Chinese rule. And if some character was more higher frequency used in Korean community, probably we will just adopt the rule that highly available, highly used in Korean community. So basically we are heading to this approach. And because the rule is quite simple, so we believe after a few weeks computation, the results should come out very quickly. So I believe some significant outcome will be generated end of September. And so we probably will have a big announcement from end of this year if everything goes through. That's my suggestion.
Okay, from my side, as Kenny said, we don't have issues. No, we don't have issues because, as I said, we are requested from IP that we should reduce the number of allocatable labels. So for example, we have already have IDN.jp registration around 120,000 registration. That's a big. And observing the registration, real registrations, there are many labels registered, and which have a lot of variant labels if we import the Chinese variant definition. So we do have to reduce that. So we haven't decided how to reduce that. So we need to think about that seriously from now on. Yes, and that's the biggest thing. Right.
Thank you, Hiro. I just wanted to clarify something that Hiro meant. He said the IP requested the Japanese community to reduce the number of their variants, and I just want to say that IP here does not stand for Internet Protocol. It stands for the Integration Panel, and this is actually a small group of experts that actually oversee all the, review all the submissions from the community script panels and actually say, yes, this is okay, or no, this is not okay, go back and do some more work. So that's who he means by IP.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, in the interest of time, let's move on. So we'll invite Rapid to join us remotely. And just to check with the engineering team, can he control his own slides or do I have to do it from my side?
The remote speaker. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Rapid, over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chirong.
Thank you very much for joining us. Please go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rapid Sun from National Institute of Post, Telecom and ICT from Ministry of Post and Telecommunication. And I'm also a member of the Khmer Generation Panel in the root zone also. And next slide, please. So I'm going to present you about our progress of the proposal, and one is about the introduction of our Khmer language, and the second about how about our Khmer script, and member of our Khmer Generation Panel, and the project schedule that we had conclude, and our methodology that we are working in a small group with the technical person, and also the feedback. Next slide, please. So for the Khmer language, the Khmer language has been written since the early 7th centuries, and our script is based on the Abugida Thai originating in the South India. And the Khmer script borrows some word from Sanskrit and Pali, and also the Khmer script also was borrows in Thai, in Lao, and also in some minority exist in Cambodia like Khoi, Stieng, Samrai, Cham, and others. And the language is used by the Cambodian people, about 15 million people, and also some part of the population also in Thailand and also in Vietnam. Next slide, please. So our script is within the ISO 15924, and we are writing from left to right, and we have a lot of script about 146 characters, include the consonant, the vowel, independent consonant, and also subconsonant also. And in our Unicode range from U17H to U17FF, and later we also have some special character from U19E0 to U19FF. Next slide, please. So here is the member of our Khmer generation panel. We have Dr. Supip. He's supposed to present to be a speaker for today's, but unfortunately he is not well for the past few days with a big flu. So I'm also the member of the generation panel and also acting as a secretary. We also have a member from Telecom Cambodia who also run the DNS, the .ka DNS top level domain, and also some member from the e-government department, and also some from had experience in Unicode, and also have some from linguistics also, the two lecturer from the Royal University of Phnom Penh. Next slide, please. So here is our project that we had been working so far. That we developed the principle, and that we submit to the ICANN, and we also work on determine the code points and the variants, that the variant between the Khmer language and the Thais, the Khmer language and Lao, and the Khmer language and Burmese, and also the schedule that we work on the label rule, whole label rule, and we also working to host the public consultation after we had the draft, first draft of the proposal. And also the last from the proposal we developed the XML, and then we submit to ICANN for the public comment. Next slide, please. So our methodology, that because of all of the member in our generation panel, all of them, some is from linguistics, and some from the technical like DNS, or some from the e-government department. So then we decide to work to build a small working group, especially because this identify the consonant, the vowel, the independent vowel or other script. It mainly related to linguistics. That's so we build a small team. We work within the linguists that mainly, and then after we have the first proposal, then we call for the meeting with other member of the group of the generation panel, that we present them the proposal, and then ask for their comment or their feedback regarding on this. And we also develop the variant that in Khmer language we also have some variant, especially some consonant when we form a label, then some consonant is look the same. So then we also identify some variant in Khmer language. Next slide. And also we also developed some variant between the Khmer and Thai, and the Khmer and Lao, and the Khmer and Burmese. There are about 17 character that we think it is a variant, and then we also have a discussion with the Thai generation panel on this, and we have developed there are 7 label rules that we develop, and for example some special sign is not follow cannot be followed with some consonant, so the vowels cannot be independent, for example, and then we based on this label rule, then we develop the XML file. Next slide, please. So this is the feedback. We have our proposal from 0.1 to 1.0, about 10 edition proposal, and we develop and get the feedback within the member in the Khmer generation panel, and also share the proposal with the integration panel that we also get the feedback from them, and we after the final proposal, we have the public workshop, which we invite for a larger community from the academy, from the civil society, from NGO, and from the user, that they can give the feedback of our proposal. And the proposal we submit to ICANN and then reviewed by the integration panel, and also get the public comment, and it is end by 28 May 2016, and then we got a few comments, one from Thai generation panel, and one also from integration panel. With the Thai generation panel, we had discussed about the variant, and then after we discussion that there is no variant between the Khmer and Thai. There are some, regarding in terms of the consonant, some consonant is look similar, but when it's formed as a label, then it is not it is not considered as a variant. That is this is our conclusion after we had a discussion with the Thai generation panel. Yeah. So next slide. Okay, I'm come to the end of my presentation, and then if any question, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Rapid. We'll leave the questions to the end, so we'll hand over now the time to Wanawit to talk about the Thai panel, and I think Rapid already raised a very good point about the challenge in cross-community work for the Chinese, Japanese, Korean one is very different from the one in for Lao, Thai, and Khmer. But I'll leave that more details to Wanawit. Thank you.
Yes, I might try to simplify it. A lot of people were getting lost here. What we are talking about is about language. And in general, first thing is what IDN bring to me. I speak on the capacity of the chair of the LGR panel in Thailand, which I don't know much of the I'm not the linguistic person at all, but we have the member that coming from university, blah, blah, blah. When we start to work, we just wonder what it is. I think the inspiration is sitting in the rooms. It's Edmund .HA, he's the one talking about, he's the one who's shouting about the email in local language. And that inspired me of what it is. Why we have to care about having an email in local language, the address and all this stuff. Then we start to study. Thailand is coming late in this, but we try to look into holistic approach rather than focus only on the LGR alone. Because LGR is only the root zone, which only engineers working. But we try to look into the border sense. So our LGR panel is working. And then what we found out is that Thailand have 35 scripts. I don't even know who they are.
35 scripts that we have to take care of, including Bali in India, surprising us. Because Bali is speaking language, not a written form, but because of the religious, the Thai scripts was used to construct the Bali language in religious, and that are something. That's what we get out of running the LGR. We found out two things. One is that it's easy for us because nobody used our character, thank God. It's too complex. And you don't need to know anything in detail. Let's assume that there is one language that you have, let's say, 3 levels of the language. So you have upper and you have lower. And one word is comprised of the beginning words, ending, upper, lower. It's 4 factorial, right? The way you typing your keyboards to construct one word. Because you can start by anything. A lower first, the first character, and lower, and the later characters, or the upper one. So you have 4 positions in your language. This become a disaster. Because when I was a kid, before you enter into the government, you have to go to typewriting, typewriter class, examination. You have to know how to put all this, I don't know how to call it, the way you're typing, the minutes, the word per minutes and all that stuff. You're not old enough. In old time, it's like that. You have to go to the typewriter exam. At least you have to pass 60 words per minute to qualify as a government official. And then the way that they put the upper and lower is fixed. You have to put the upper first and lower because the mechanic is not going to work. It's going to clash. Because the mechanic way of Remington typewriter work like that. Then come to the internet world. The kids don't even know the keyboards. They type whatever I like. Then the LGR panel, we put the technology people in Google's and Microsoft sitting there. And they just say that it's waste of the time. And we demonstrate that their search engine is not working at all. It depends on the typing of these 4 letters. And that's what we learned. That is a big asset we get out of these LGRs. Have nothing to do, sorry, with the root zone, but it's the local context that Thailand found out. Google, and we know now, fix that problem. We get this for free from the work that we done. So we know exactly that this is a problem. There are a lot of problems I use as an example that to doing this exercise is help locally to talk to the technology provider because it's my overlook, and especially the mobile phone that coming. This will lead to, then they will start to look, oh, this will lead to the phishing side because the combination of the character, user look the same, but the sequence is different. We call sequencing problem. And that's what we learn out of this work in the LGR. And working with Khmer and Laos in Marrakesh, we also have the networking. If you look into, I think Hiro mentioned a bit about the second level that the public comment already closed down in February. We all do see that the problem of cross-scripting of our language in Thai and Lao will be happen more on the second level because that's not in the hand of IANA or because the way that the reseller is putting the second level, if they're not controlling this might lead to the phishing side. We already demonstrate that we can put the Lao character in combination with Thai. And if normally the user is using this kind of automatic or QR codes or whatever, it's automatic input the URL for you. Then the user will never know that they're entering into the wrong site. And that are the things that we work. And that is about our LGR in common. You don't need to know the Thai language, but there are a lot of exercise that we're coming out late a bit because we try to look into holistic approach. We try to enforce the EAI. EAI is email address internationalized. It's also related to this work in LGR a bit, how you put the email in Thai language. with the top level domain. And for the second level domain, we did not see the urgency because I only have one IDN. It's different case than in Japan, Korea, and China. They have lot of IDN or Arabic. Thailand have only one IDN, and Laos do not have, Khmer do not have. So we're not in the groups. If you know the detail, we're not in the groups to work as either group 1 or 2. So we're not working in the second level domain yet because there are no urgency there. It should not be any problem. But one last thing is when with that 35 language, I think you know about this story when you kick off me for the LGR. Remember? Yeah, kick off. You kick me out. Yeah. We have ICANN is come to support us also for the kick-off meeting, kick-off event in Thailand. And we found out that one of the language in Thailand is speaking by 3.5 million people. Then I visit that location, and I found out that everywhere they promote to use that local character, local string. All the hotel try to put that. And I have a speak, try to invite them to be in. And a lot of people is really crying, the old people, because they thought that internet will destroy all the language. Because there's no way that they can put. They never thought that this would be possible. And that is important for IDN and LGR works. I think the technology or internet should not destroy who they are because they use that language. 3.5 million using it. They can have a sign in front of the office, in front of the hotel, but they never thought that they can have an internet website that can put that characters in. It's not difficult for all engineers, but that another side story of what you can do with LGR. You can bring this thing in. So don't try to look around. You might find something the same as what I find. Even though you're using Roman, and try to look around at whether there are some minorities, some people that still use other scripts, even though you mean using the Romanization already. But I be sure that we're gonna find out, because that language that I mentioned is also used by Burmese. It's a cross-scripting between Burmese and Thai in the northern Thai regions. So I do hope that we have energy enough next year to start that LGR panel for Northern Thai. We also call the same, we call Hans, but in the other format, like Burmese character. That is, like like to share with you that what LGR brings it, I think, to preserve, because the language is a culture, it's arts, it's a people that you're dealing with. So it's important that I can outreach, and it's important that the local community aware that it's there, and we need to work together. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranawit. I think that's a good segue for me to say a couple of things as conclusions before we go into the Q&A. I think the second point that Ranawit made was with regard to we think that we know all the languages there is existed, and we think that it might be represented somewhere, but what's very clear is that there are many languages around the world that are becoming extinct, and some of them were a result of us relying on computers. From ICANN, what we hope to do is that we can capture that script and allow it to be used on a top-level domain. And this is where you can volunteer your script, or the script that you know maybe some minority community from your country might be using it, but they are not actually being used on the internet. So if you know that, please write to us on this email on the first point, idntlds@icann.org, and we will reach out to you to help you show you how to set up the label generation panel, who and which kind of experts should join that panel. We can give you some advice, and then we help you in terms of the scope, how do you start the panel, and so on. So in ICANN, we do that support work, and we hope that we can work with you. So if you know of this, please help us to spread the word as well. so that we can preserve some of these very important scripts that are around, and so that we can actually make the internet more to have the diversity and inclusiveness in the internet. The other areas where you can get involved with regard to IDN work is, well, always you can review all the work through public comments. The various speakers shared that their work, after they're completed, they have to put it up for public comment. So if you speak that particular language or you use that particular script, you can always go in to see the work in the proposals, and then you can comment on it, and your comments will always be valued. So we hope that you can give your public comments to that. And the third one, of course, is keep yourself updated to various updates. So you can join a mailing list, which is vip@ican.org. I find this very interesting. To get updates specifically on the IDM program. Yeah, so these are the three areas. Now let's move to Q&A. Any questions or any thoughts on what the speakers have presented or thought about? While you're mulling over, I shall just start with one, which I think is very interesting because I didn't really think about it until Wanawit mentioned, which is on the whole issue of phishing. Sometimes you get this email which looks like it's your friend, but actually it's somebody else. Because, for example, like ICANN, it can be someone who poses as me, but instead of like jarong.lo@icann with 2 N's, it can be icann with 3 N's.org, and pretends to be me, and I reply and give them like my information, like, oh, Jarong asked you for your birthday, and then you say, oh yeah, my birthday is this date, and then you get phished. And in the situation of like of IDNs, where Wanawit mentioned, if somebody actually decide to change scripts, so use 2 letters for Lao and then suddenly switch to 2 letters for Thai, the computer reads it as code, so it cannot tell the difference. But the user would, well, the computer sees the 2 things as different. So Lao script and Thai script are different things, but the user would read it as though it's the same thing. So actually there are 2 different addresses, but the user cannot tell. So as a result, it creates some phishing problems out of it. So this actually has more implications for the user than anything else, because it creates that issue of security. And I realize that is a very good point that's been flagged, and we will need to come up with a solution to think about how to resolve this. So that's just one of the points I think is very relevant. I'm not sure whether our speakers has any comment with regard to this issue. Okay, what about any questions from the floor? We're open to that. Please.
My name is Zakir. I'm from Pakistan. I have a question about this IDN program. I mean, there are certain languages which are using the same script. For example, Arabic script and Persian or Urdu language of the Pakistani, and then Afghani language, Pashto language. They are using the same script. So how is it this problem tackled within the IDN program, or the IDN system, that, for example, if I write Iran in Urdu language or in Arabic language or in Pashto language, it will be the same number of characters that are there. So for example, if I write Iran.com, Iran in Arabic script, so how exactly is this thing tackled? This is Iranian, the Persian Iran, or the Urdu language Iran, or Pashto language Iran?
So I think when the repertoire was developed, and there are all these different languages that use the same script, in terms of identifying it for review, you place a tag on it, meaning that this character or letter or whatever it is comes from, let's say, Iranian or Persian or Urdu, and so on and so forth. But when you are on the internet and you are with a label, it's almost impossible to tell. Like Hiro was trying to mention that. And that is why there has to be a rule that's agreed by all the Arabic using script community that says if this label is being used, then something else that looks similar to that has either to be blocked or not allocated. And that's why we need the community to come up with the rules, to propose it, and to get agreement.
Thank you. Over there. Microphone over there, please.
My name is Eungjun Jung from Korea. I think the trademark is an important factor for setting up domain name policy. And Hota-san mentioned before, Japan community discussed with the Trademark Association about TLD strings. My question is that what was the main topic or any controversial issues of the discussion with the Trademark Association? As far as I know, maybe I'm wrong, Korean community has not consulted with the trademark owners about specific things. That's why I question it. Thank you.
Thank you very much about the question. So the first thing is, surprisingly, do they want IDN TLD? That's the first issue we discussed. Because, of course, in Japan, many trademarks are written in Japanese characters. But on the internet, they just want to have English names as a TLD. So I think that may be a lack of emails or email capability or something, but at least at this moment, they don't want ID and TLD very much. That's the first issue discussed with them. And second one is, as you said, if they want to have TLD, ID and TLD, they may, that TLD string may have variants. So, for example, even in Japan, that two characters may be interpreted as the same character. So, but it is not a deep issue for them because their current issue is whether IDN is necessary or not.
Just add a few words. Actually, it's not a new question. It's a very old question. Look back to probably 20 years ago when we started talking about IDM protocol. All the ITF engineering team, they just went out. They say they are not interested in that kind of discussion because they consider we already have domain name, and domain name just an identifier, so they can represent any kind of. You can put your multilingual name in multilingual language in the web content instead of put it in the domain name. Even right now, still a lot of people criticize, therefore we need to pay attention on the domain name because right now everything was using app. So app, you can just key in any keyword so you can go to the destination by itself. Therefore you need to pay attention on the domain name. So we probably went into the wrong industry, but just kidding. So we need to back to the principle of communication. What's the principle of data communication? Is a multi-layer. From layer 1 to layer 7, probably from TCP/IP is 5 layers. The major characteristic of the layering is every layer are independent. For example, when you're doing cabling, you don't need to worry about what the protocol will be running on top of cabling. When you deploy the TCP/IP, you don't need to worry about what sort of application will be run on top of TCP/IP. We are doing a specific layer application. If you consider IDN is an application, it definitely IDN has no any commercial interest at all. But if you consider we are enabling the possibility of an infrastructure, software infrastructure, then we are maximizing the future potential for the application. So if you consider trademark, definitely something will relate to the IDN, but it's not closely related, it's partially related. But what we're trying to do, we just maximize the potential for the future application. But domain name alone doesn't consider as a very decent application. Basically, it's still considered as an infrastructure. So we are developing the infrastructure, prepare for the future.
Okay, you got a mic ready.
Okay. Hi, my name is Saeed from Afghanistan. I come from a country where there's tons of languages, 52 registered languages, and there's many more. And we use Arabic script. My question is that if we have identified some languages that are part of the IDN working group, and there are some languages where we cannot find some experts who can contribute into the IDN working group, what is the process of this variance and LGR development and review process? When the email and the domain system, IDN domain name system, is fully functional, would it be a problem to add more languages to it? Is there a process established for that or no?
So the label generation rules is going to be released on a cyclical basis. So LGR1, I think, has been released, and there will be a period where there will be acceptance of new submissions, and the experts will look at the submission to see whether it's appropriate to add to it. So it's not the end of the line. You certainly have an opportunity to participate.
Hello, my name is Keisuke. I'm from academia. I pretty much appreciate all the work you have done for the various technology development, but I am interested in what happened after all the technological development is completed. So how do you perceive the take-up of all IDN top-level and second-level domain names will look like? Yeah, so that's my question.
Thank you. I think I've heard Wanawit talk about this before, so I asked him to answer first. So the question is, after all of this work is done, how do you think people are going to use it? What do you think the pickup rate might be like going forward?
Simple question. I'm facing this question before. The issue is, I think it's related to the theme we're talking. Merging physical space and cyberspace. Nobody can find me with the Roman names, the ASCII. It's impossible. If you map between the Thai characters, you cannot. I can spell 100 ways to represent my names. So you will never find me if you don't know how I spell my name in English. Because like my family name, using both Sanskrit and Bali to represent it. It's not the Thai. It's not the consonants. It's the syntax that represent that this is coming from Sanskrit family. So there are 1,000 exceptional rules in a language. But when you're born, you get the Thai character names. So if it's not available, so how could you identify people? So they did not know that it's available. And people are get used to using English. But this will bring in a new thing. So you can write your name in Thai. You can have email in Thai. You can know this government office. You type in, you can find. That are the major issues that we think that people just wait and they don't understand that this technology is available and it's important. And you talk about the physical, the cyberspace identity, we talk a lot about e-authentication frameworks, and if you cannot identify a person in their local context, so why we have to use the technology is impossible. Like if you're familiar with the word PKI, public key infrastructures, it's not going to work because the key point is legally binding, but there are no legal document in English. Passport is not a legal document, by the way. We don't have the legal framework in English. So it's still in Thai. If you want to sue anyone in the court, everybody, even you are Western, we will spell your name in Thai first. The attorney have to spell the name that this is the person, and then the court order will start to work. And these are the local context. I do believe that the acceptance rate will be high, and I have to mention that in detail, even though I use my email address in Thai, I can send to anywhere in the world, and they can send me back. It's not a problem at all. Not meaning that I have to teach the other side of the group to type the Thai character names. That's what I can do there. I don't go into detail. They call Punicode, blah, blah, blah. There are technical words that have been used. It seamlessly. I send to Google's, I did that EAI already is done, is perfectly done. And the problem is only who gonna provide a service at which cost. We are now working with technology supplier like Outlook from Microsoft and Google to offer these kind of services for the Thai citizen. So I think it took very long time from technical availability all the way to technology suppliers.
Thank you. I'm wondering whether the other speakers have anything to add. Kenny.
Yeah, I also agree with you. Basically, when you ask the question, it depends on what sort of time frame you're talking about. If it's talking about 6 months, it's very difficult. 2 years, a challenge. But when you consider 20 years, it's a highly, all kind of potential possibility can be generated. If you think 20 years too long, let's consider Internet TCP/IP. It took 30 years to commercialize. Even for IPv6, it was created in 1996. Right now, it took 20 years to start getting growth, 10% growth rate. So, but still has a great potential in the future. That's why I mentioned, if you consider its application, definitely hopeless. But if you consider it's a software infrastructure, it's a technology infrastructure, once it creates, it's just there, waiting to be maturized. So be patient.
Thank you, Kenny. Well, I don't think I can put it more eloquently, but that was very good. I hope we can go back and get a transcript. I'll just read it next time I get the same question. Because there are many layers, but I think Kenny put it very eloquently. And on top of that, when I did a tour around with my colleague Samad Hussain, who runs this IDM program for ICANN, and when we were going around the different countries, and often he would tell me, okay, you lead the Asia Pacific work, so can you always give an introduction to ICANN? So when I talk about ICANN and the IDM program, and I'll say, imagine a day when your local community can come online without typing a single word of English. You see the faces change in those people's mind, those people's faces. Why? Like one of it mentioned, in Thailand, there's a large community that cannot speak English and cannot use English. Even if you want to sue someone, you have to write Thai, which means that it limits them from using the English system. And this application basically allows for, then the sky becomes a limit because the application allows for the usage of local languages on the internet. Another area I think I can highlight as well is there are many national initiatives that are thinking of driving this forward. For example, even with working with one of it in the Thai government, and also working with Rapid, also from the Cambodian government. They are willing to trying very hard to push this forward from the application layer, but they also have a vision to going forward, how can they promote this even better? So for the Indian government, for example, they are promoting the active use of .Bharat, which is Indian Hindi script, rather Neo-Brahmi script, which is the Indian script, to encourage people to use their own local script for domain names. So there is a national initiative which drives this. I think it has to be a multi-stakeholder model in a way where governments drive national initiatives and the software and the businesses also pick this up and the users also are able to pick this up. But as Kenny mentioned, I don't think I can add any more to that. If we look at the landscape of 20 years, I do believe that we will see many communities come online using their own scripts and languages. Any other questions? We have time for one last one.
Yes, thank you. I'm Lisa from the Philippines. Yes, it's good to hear that languages and scripts can be preserved and appreciated by communities online as well, in the internet. Of course, in the Philippines, we use Roman script, and it's because of centuries of colonization. But we also have our own script. It's called the Alibata. And I was wondering if there has been an initiative already in the Philippines to use that script. Otherwise, because I know some groups who are also who are studying and preserving that script, and it would also be good to see that it's also included in this new IGR or IDS.
Thank you. I'll just take this question. I think, as far as I know, I don't think that that script is being used. So if we could take this offline, I would really appreciate it if you could just write to me and also to this email, idntlds@icann.org, and tell us about this script a little bit more. Then we'll find a way to work with you. Thank you so much. Okay, I think this pretty much wraps it up for this session. Thank you so much for your time, and can we give a big round of applause for our speakers? Thank you so much. And thank you very much, Rapid, for joining us remotely. Thank you so much.
Yes, goodbye. Yes. Thank you.
Just a warm reminder, there's the synthesis document drafting sections in next door for O1A plus B, so please join us there and contribute your ideas on our synthesis document for this meeting. Thank you.
What is this? The minister. Taiwan TV. Oh. Are you leaving? No, tomorrow. 5 o'clock. Because I know you are here. You're leaving tomorrow or tonight? Right, what time? 3 o'clock. 8:30. How could you do it? Oh, from a hotel. So your flight take off midnight. Yeah, so my flight is 8. Last flight to Bangkok. No, that's why I changed. No. I want to spend time with drafting. I'm not gonna go anywhere. Yes, that's what my boss said, that you better work on the internet because I spend most of the time in the internet. Okay, I'm losing a job I can apply for ICANN. Yeah.